A few years ago, Mr. Muscarello wrote a letter to an attorney representing Mr. Harrison. And at that time, Mr. Muscarello's letter stated, "At this time, the district does not appear to have the water and wastewater capacity to serve the 106 lots on the property as requested without enhancements to both the water and wastewater systems. In order to do so, Mr. Harrison would need to fund these improvements to the water and wastewater systems to provide sufficient capacity for the 106 lots on the property. The district began to provide an engineering study and a cost estimate for those expenditures. It became apparent that those expenditures would be very expensive. Mr. Harrison instructed the district to cease any further effort in this regard due to the cost." Flashing forward to today, I have to ask the board, was there a creation of the needed improvements referred to in Mr. Muscarello's letter, or are the residents of this district going to have to pay up to create the expensive infrastructure Mr. Muscarello outlined? I ask you, so what changed, Mr. Brizuela? Why was Mr. Harrison's project dead in the water just a couple of short years ago, but now this board and yourself have embraced the proposal and in fact annexed it into the district? Well, two things did change. First, Mr. Harrison had the good sense to retain your brother-in-law as his representative before this board. And second, Fox Mill Limited Partners conveyed a parcel of Fox Mills Park to you. Now, given these two developments, I must ask you, was your decision to annex Norton swayed by the fact that Mr. Harrison was represented by your brother-in-law, Mr. Griffin? Number two, was your decision swayed by the fact that your wife's family business stands to receive $2.6 million if you support the annexation of Norton Lake? And number three, was your decision swayed by the receiving of a parcel of land carved out of Fox Mill's open space and conveyed by Fox Mill Limited Partner to yourself? And also, is it true, Mr. Brizuela, that the land you received was a free gift? The Sanitary District Act of 1936 is very clear. I quote, "No trustee of a sanitary district shall have a direct or indirect interest in any business of the district." Mr. Brizuela, do you believe your actions are consistent with this act? And have you accepted a gift from what the district's own ordinance defines as a prohibited source? The ethics ordinance the district has adopted defines a prohibited source is a person or entity that is seeking official action by an officer, or a prohibited source is an entity that has interests that may be substantially affected by the performance or non-performance of the official duties of the officer or employee. Does your action in adopting the annexation of Norton conflict with your own ethics ordinance? Further, Mr. Brizuela, are you comfortable with the agreement referred to in this email from your brother-in-law to the Sanitary District's attorney, Mr. Muscarello? I FOIA'd an email dated September 25th, 2008, and in it reads, "Chip, I've attached my proposed edits to the annexation agreement. Regarding on-site irrigation, I think we're in agreement on this. The district would be required to look to Fox Mill site first for on-site irrigation of open space, but could only use Norton Lakes if Fox Mill is not the solution. Is there an agreement between the district and your brother-in-law to insulate his client's development from the negative effect on property values of applying treated sewage on their parks, but to instead apply the sewage on Fox Mills parks? Your neighbors need to know the answer to this. I also ask you, Mr. Brizuela, how can you have failed to recuse yourself from the annexation of Norton Lake when you are intertwined so closely with the entity profiting from this development? Mr. Sindelar and Mr. Skidmore, if it becomes evident to you that Mr. Brizuela accepted a gift from Fox Mill Limited Partners while presiding over the annexation of the Norton Lake project, will you demand his resignation? Will you gentlemen demand the Attorney General investigate this serious matter? The public has a right to expect that their elected representatives are free of conflict of interest when making decisions. Mr. Brizuela, if you have solicited and received a gift of property from Foxmill Limited Partners while advocating for the annexation of Norton Lake, then it is incumbent upon you to resign immediately. I ask the other two trustees to launch their own investigation into this matter immediately as well. Given the relationship all three trustees have with B&B, could the board please explain this evening how they can ever legally preside over matters involving B&B without being in conflict with the relevant laws? Thank you for this time to speak.
I'm new to this. Why don't you respond? Do you respond in writing?
Will I receive a response in writing? Will I receive a response in writing? That's not an answer to my question.
I would like to withdraw my